All right, talking about taking a chance, they're going to let me do the welcome and announcements. So, welcome. And now the announcement. No, as part of the welcome, is there anybody who's here for the first time? If you'd be so kind as just raise your hand, and we're happy to acknowledge that you're here. And we'll speak to you at some time during the day, and we want to make sure that you feel welcome. And if you have any questions, ask any of the board members or ask the person sitting next to you. And if they don't know, hopefully they'll find the right person to direct you to get the answers.
Thank you. I want to encourage everyone to join me in this spiritual practice that is here at Unity of Charlotte. This spiritual practice enables you to align yourself with something real, something that is an attribute of God. I want you to turn on the love that is in your heart. You know exactly what it feels like. And as we affirm what we know to be the truth about unity, I want you to put your heart into it. When you put your heart into it, the power of God is right here. Father, Mother God, we do thank you for this opportunity to do spiritual work. Spiritual work is knowing. Knowing with all of our hearts engages spiritual power. Right now we engage that spiritual power with the love that is within us. And we know that God is all good. God is active in everything, everyone, everywhere. We know that we are naturally good because God's divinity expresses as each of us. We proclaim and acclaim and affirm our unity with the Creator, and we do so lovingly. We create the experiences of our lives by what we choose to think and feel and believe. And right now, we are believing and knowing that unity exists everywhere throughout the cosmos. We know that affirmative prayer and meditation connect us with the power of God. And we know that right now we are doing our very best, for we are living unity principles daily. We are making a difference for humanity and the entire cosmos, because the truth we know is empowered by our community. And so it is.
And so just staying in that awareness and that consciousness of the divine love and the infinite presence always available. We just open our hearts in this moment to the living Spirit. We know that we live, move, and have our being in it, even as it has its being in us. We give thanks for this day, for this opportunity to be together in spiritual community, to remember the spiritual truth and to announce and proclaim that, to live from that higher awareness. We give thanks for all of the many who come together to provide this service, and all of those who have come together for years and years and years to put forth unity of Charlotte. We know that something magnificent is happening in and through and as us individually and collectively. So we bless all those who serve. We accept that all who know us are served by us. And so, giving thanks, I simply allow it to be so. As together we say, and so it is. Amen. Beautiful. Thank you. This morning, our meditation comes from The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Since it's Love Week, I'll speak to us of marriage before I get bitter and... No, I'm not going to. And so I invite you, if it's comfortable, just to close your eyes and to allow these words of truth to sink into you. And one asked, "And what of us... Tell us of marriage, Master." And he answered, saying, "You were born together, and together you shall be forevermore. You shall be together when the white wings of death scatter your days. Aye, you shall be together even in the silent memory of God. But let there be places and spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Rather, let it be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. fill each other's cup, but drink not from one cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each of you be alone. Even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver to the same music. Give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping, for only the hand of life can contain your heart. And stand together yet, but not too near each other, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. So I'd like to invite you to stand and join us in speaking words of truth, our affirmation for February, and then you can remain standing as we sing our congregational song together. Today, I awaken to my spiritual magnificence. I honor and celebrate who I am. I am grateful for all of my blessings. I allow my light to shine brightly. Today, I awaken to my spiritual magnificence.
Love light of the one.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Oh, imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Oh, imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I sure hope one day you'll join us. Then the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. Just a brotherhood of man. Oh, imagine all the people sharing all the world. Oh, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I just hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks.
Bless you.
Bless you. Mr. Lawrence Tolliver. Or as I like to call him, Brother Lawrence. Thank you. So for those of us of a certain age, who thought we'd be singing Beatles songs in church, right? Remember when the invasion came and they were going to take over the world and all our parents were saying, oh my God, what's come to us, right? It's a good thing. It's a good thing. So this week is Valentine's Day, or some like to call it Singles Awareness Day. So I just want to be upfront. I have issues, okay? So I just want to share that with you. And I don't have issues with Valentine's Day. It's a lovely idea. However, I think one of the things that we are about is rising above the consciousness of the world. And by that I say that there is a way of thinking in our world. And then it becomes collective consciousness. In the olden days, they referred to it as race consciousness, but because of our evolution of words, that means something different to us. Not about racial, it's about human race consciousness. But that idea that people believe something to be true, and then they act as if it's true, and then they go forward from there. So, supposedly at one point in the history of humanity, there was a belief that the world was flat. And because of that belief, people didn't want to go too far from the edge of land, lest you fall off. And so all of life revolved around an idea and a belief system that was not true. And then some crazy thinkers started thinking outside of what is perceived as reality, because you can just go out, you can see the horizon. It's right there. Simple enough. You can see the end. So you believe that would be so. But how often do we operate in our lives acting as if something is true and then later only to find out it's not true? So, my issue. We have a day that has been a little bit commercialized. And so everybody moves into this crazy, frenetic energy around, I must say I love you today, in a certain prescribed way. Nothing wrong with that. I grew up, my first career was in restaurants, and so I got to see what happened at certain times. Valentine's Day is great for restaurants. It's great for the flower industry. It's wonderful for the candy industry. And yet people move into a mentality sometimes that thinks love looks a certain way. I'll be a jerk for 364 days out of the year, but Valentine's Day, I will show up with my box of chocolates and my dozen flowers, and I will say I love you and all's well. So, thank you for letting me have that moment. I'm feeling better. I appreciate the therapy. Right? So there's nothing wrong with it, but for me, I always say holidays are just to remind us what we should be doing anyways. Right? That we should be loving. We should express our love to one another. We don't have to wait for a holiday. We should make that a daily practice. You see, one of the challenges I think we have in our world, in our language, is we use love for everything. Love your sweater. Love you. Or as in Steel Magnolias, that great line is, I love you more than my luggage. But, I forget what the rest of the line is, I just remember the first part, right? So we get like, okay, so your love, is this better, more than my sweater or less than my sweater? I'm not sure what's going on here. You see, in the Greek, there was at least 4 different words for types of love. So there was eros, which is the root word from erotic, but it really is romantic love, and so that's what we celebrate this Wednesday, romantic love, which is a beautiful and lovely thing. There was philia, which is brotherly love, or so family of man type of love. There is storge, which is the natural affection, such as we have for parental love or familial love, that thing that happens. And then this idea of agape, of divine love, of unconditional love. And so how nice would that be if we started clarifying our terms, right? Because we lump it all into one pot and we wonder why we're confused, right? But I believe what the masters are teaching us is that our ultimate goal is to operate from a place of divine love, from a place of agape, from a place of unconditional love, which is to say, no matter your behavior, no matter where you are in your life, I'm going to choose to love you, even when I don't love your behavior. You see, it's a big difference, isn't it? Sometimes one of the ways we confuse love is we say, well, I would love you if That by itself tells you we're not in a place of unconditional love. That's what we call conditional love. If you do this, and so many of us grew up with a concept that if we were just somehow different, if we were just more something, more like our brother or sister, kid down the road, more something that we're not, then we would somehow be more lovable. And then some of us went off in search of love, feeling the emptiness in our own heart, thinking that if we could find someone that would love us, we would be okay. And we would live happily ever after. Why would we think such a thing? Because we were told it from the time we were little beans, that we're going to find that one. We're going to fall in love. And we're going to be happy, live happily ever after. How y'all doing? How y'all doing with that program, right? Then you realize, well, there may be some work that goes on just besides the falling in love and living happily ever after piece, right? And so that's where the good work is. Because relationship becomes this wonderful, amazing workshop for healing and revealing the truth of who we are, right? So those of us or those who've been in long-term relationships know it took some work. It took some awareness. It took some consciousness. And it's a beautiful thing. You see, I think that I've moved more and more to the awareness that love is not something that happens. Love is simply a choice that we make. That we choose in each and every moment to be more loving, to be more present, to be more available. Now, as I said, it is not one of the great skills that we can learn to develop. Great parents have this skill. They can separate out their love from their child's behavior. And so rather than saying, if you clean up your room, I would love you, we say, I love you, and it's time to clean up your room. Get it? My love is not conditioned on your clean room. Your allowance may be. Some consequence of not cleaning up your room may be because I love you enough to set healthy boundaries. I was 59 before I learned that. Well, I'm learning. So I'm still willing to know, right? That love is really expressed from the heart, and we need to show up in ways that are supportive of our humanness. But if we start as love as the premise, if we start with love as the premise, then we see everything as a loving activity. You see, one of the things I say is sometimes the most loving thing you can do is perhaps painful, both for you and for the other. Setting boundaries, saying no. And any kid worth their salt, any kid that's been through kid school, knows to say, you don't love me, or you love Bobby more, right? Grounded spiritual beings say, no, I always love you. And you're still going to have to clean up your room, right? We just separate out behavior. So sometimes even when people move into this idea around forgiveness, they think that by forgiving someone, we're making their inappropriate behavior okay. And nothing could be further than the truth. But it is saying, I'm not going to allow anything stand in the way of my ability to give and to express love. And so the idea of forgiveness is simply giving forth love. I'm loving myself. I'm loving others. I'm loving by choice and by design. I'm not waiting for some freak accident to happen. Now, don't get me wrong. I've been in love. I used to do it. I was just addicted to it for a long time, right? But I've had mature, healthy, loving, nurturing relation. It's a beautiful thing. So hear me when I'm saying that's not a bad thing. The problem with any of this is when we think that the effect is going to create the cause. Do you know what I'm saying by that? When we think that being in a relationship is going to bring us joy and happiness. That when we have more money, we will be abundant. When everybody settles down, when the chaos stops, we will be at peace. You see, that is confusing effect with cause. Those of us in metaphysics realize that there is a cause that leads to effect. That when we can practice being at peace, when we can practice being still, when we can practice love for those who appear to be unlovable, then we know we're moving into a higher realm of being. So Jesus spoke to us when he said, love one another. You see, Jesus' radical teaching, it's easily missed. Jesus' radical teaching, where he veered from the many rabbis that went before him, was he said, you must love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. This was not an eye for an eye mentality. This was a choose love over everything else. Now, we also, in reading more carefully, he threw a few fits. We have a few stories of him throwing fits, so I believe those, you know. There's a word for it, but when it, right? When that stuff leaks into the biography, you go, okay, that's real, you know. But he didn't stop loving the people. Do you see, that's the opportunity that's in front of us. There's a wonderful teacher who said that the requirement of consciousness is a prerequisite of claiming power over one's life. The requirement of consciousness is a prerequisite for claiming power over one's life. Until we fully understand that we create from the inside out, then we are always chasing the effects. We need to be conscious in a way that combines our mind, our body, our heart, and our soul. We need to experience our suffering and our transformation with the same mind-body connectedness that characterizes the other wonderful things in our life. You see, so often we want to separate out the good pile from the bad pile. Joy, love, flowers, candy hearts, all that, that's the good. Pain, heartbreak, loss, oh, that's the bad. But you see, they are all part of being. And until we can learn to incorporate all of it into our beingness, to feel our joy and to feel our sorrow, to be present together in the midst of pain, to be present together in the midst of loss. I was talking with a friend recently about a situation going on with a beloved friend and asking, how do I be present for them in this situation? What do I say? What book should I give them? Right? You ever been with somebody and they're facing the big one, whatever they're having a debilitating disease or something, and it's like, should I run out and get them? You can heal your life. Now, again, nothing wrong with that. But sometimes what people need is for you to be present with them. To be present. See, that's true love. We want to make it okay. And sometimes it's better if I can just say this. We're all adults here. It sucks, but I'm here with you. Can I get arrested? Is there a unity squad that'll... Okay, I don't know the rules fully, so I don't want like unity swooping down and saying, oh, you said life isn't perfect all the time, right? Sometimes it's painful. But until we can incorporate the fullness of being, we only experience half of life. Can we bring our love to our pain? Can we bring our love to our sorrow? I remember years ago speaking to a woman, and she was a trained practitioner. Now, in where the tradition I come from, Centers for Spiritual Living, we have a 4-year program of study for people to become licensed professional practitioners, to train in prayer, to be spiritual counseling, if you will. And so the goal is to ultimately know the spiritual truth and reality for anyone, no matter what the circumstances are. So this lovely woman came in. I was speaking, I think the idea was around empowered by our pain, about being present for what's happening. And I, she came up afterwards and said, honey, that was just wonderful. She said, I'm a practitioner. I've been a practitioner for 20 years now. And so I had this experience of breast cancer. And so when I came to my church and I shared with some people, they were all like, there is a truth greater than you are. There is a reality. There's a wholeness. They were going into spiritual truth. She said, I know that. What I needed was someone just to be present with me. There is a time and there is a place for spiritual truth and reality. And there is a time and a place for compassion, and they're not exclusive. It is important that even as we are serving others, we know that spiritual truth. But here's another lesson I learned. Just because you know it, you don't have to say it. I'm giving that one to you for free. That's just the bonus to the package today. Right? Sometimes we need to listen and be present, all the while doing the deeper inner work. Seeing beyond the appearance, as the Master would teach us. You see, there's a powerful thing happening in our inner life if we are but aware of it. My friend and colleague Edward Villon says, the question to ask ourselves is, what detracts from my being mindfully aware of my inner life? And what contributes to being mindfully aware of my inner life? What detracts from it? What contributes to it? So we come back again and again to the idea of spiritual practice, of taking the time to know the truth, to open our hearts, to open our minds, to open ourselves to that greater reality. Doing those things that feed our soul, so that then when we're walking through the world, we're not buffeted by the effects of life, but we're in the world, but not of it. That we're experiencing life, I call it like dual vision. We seek spiritual truth and reality, and yet we recognize what's happening. We are indeed spiritual beings, expressing through human bodies. And human bodies do all kinds of weird things, don't they? In fact, Patricia told me about a friend of hers, a doctor, who said a brilliant line. He said, we must understand that people are here in the doctor's office upset because their body is betraying them. I love that, right? It's all good until something's not happening the way it's supposed to happen anymore, and it feels like betrayal. I thought, man, that's a doctor I want to see, right? I mean, we'll figure out the other stuff, but I want somebody that has the consciousness to recognize that this is more than just an ear that got out of joint. No, I don't, that's probably mixed metaphors. I don't know. Right? So, again, in the midst of love, if we recognize it as not something that we're going to fall into, problem with falling into love is it's easy to fall out of, right? But recognizing that it is a spiritual choice to love in each and every moment. And then sometimes that wonderful opportunity to have the one, if that's important to you, comes into your life, and it's lovely and wonderful. I notice as a single person that people are often wanting to try and fix that for me. They don't say that. That would be rude. But they're like, I know this guy. you know? And it's like, oh, you know, I really like being single. I liked being married. I like being single. I mean, and again, the thing that I learned somewhere along the way was wherever I go, there I am. And so if I'm going to be single, I'm going to be present for that. And if I'm going to be not single, I'll be present for that. And if I'm going to live in Sun Valley, Idaho, be present for that. And if I'm going to live in Charlotte, North Carolina, be present for that, right? It is always about the choice that we make. I have people say to me sometimes, I've lived a lot of interesting places, and they're like, where was your favorite place to live? Right? And it was like, well, once I crossed that threshold that realized that wherever I am, there I am, then they were all beautiful. Different, but all beautiful. See, I think it's so freeing. There's another sermon I want to give, but I'll save that one for another day. Does this make sense? That the choice is to love, as I often say, to choose love over every other option. Sometimes we got to go through some options to get to love, right? Sometimes we have to practice our pissosity before we get to another higher level of, I'm quoting Michael Beckwith, so it's not like I just said that, right? So it's had to be spiritual. He said it first, right? And that's okay, because that's just our behavior. Better if we don't do it to others, but, it's okay to have upset. You see, love embraces all of that. Self-love is the starting point. Learning to love yourself, to honor your worth, to respect yourself, creates the environment for healthy, nurturing, satisfying relationships to show up. So, as with so many things that we'll come to, it all starts within. If you want to be in a loving relationship, be more loving in the world. So, love one another, but make not a bond of your love. Rather, let it be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. Let us pray together. You guys want to come on up? And so as we just center into that awareness that indeed there is but one life, and therefore there is but one love, we open our hearts in this moment to recognize and realize that this divine love expresses in, through, and as all of creation. Some have said that that love is the self-givingness of spirit, that love is pouring itself into existence through its creation. So we open our hearts in this moment to that consciousness of agape, the realization of divine love, and we see life through the prism of divine love. We see wholeness, we see beauty, we see peace. We choose to be a more loving, compassionate presence in the world. We start with ourselves and we move out. We claim wholeness as our divine right. And we know that that wholeness expresses itself as health, as well-being, as vitality. We claim love as our divine birthright. And in choosing love, we heal and transform our relationships. We are moved to a higher experience of this thing we call life. We know that right here and right now we are indeed abundant beings. And so we allow our lives to reflect our divine inheritance, joyously giving and graciously receiving of this infinite bounty. How grateful I am to know this truth. How grateful I am to practice this knowing. And as we give thanks for the many blessings in our lives, we simply extend that same blessing. We celebrate this day. We bless this spiritual community. This divine idea continuing to unfold in new and empowering ways. We extend that love to our friends and our family, blessing them, holding that highest possibility. We extend the love even further to that brotherhood and sisterhood of all humanity, as we are holding a place in our hearts for peace on earth and goodwill for all. We see a world that works for everyone. And we know at the core of our being this place of agape, this place of unconditional spiritual love and truth. And as is my custom, I bless all priests, all rabbis, all ministers, all teachers of every faith. For I know there are many pathways to the divine, and I honor and celebrate them all. In joy and with profound gratitude, and through the power of the living Christ, I speak this word, knowing that it is so, as together we say, and so it is. Amen.
People all over the world join hands and start a love train, love train. People all over the world join hands and start a love train, love train. The first stop that we make will be England. Tell all the folks in Russia and China too. Don't you know that it's time to get on board and let this train keep on riding on through? Oh, people all over the world join hands, get on board. People all over the world join hands. All of you brothers over in Africa, tell all the Egypt and Israel too. Please don't miss that train at the station, 'cause if you miss it, I'll be sorry, sorry for you. Oh, people, get on board. Oh, join hands at a love train, and let's ride. Let's ride. Oh, let's ride. Let's ride, ride. People all over, join hands, get on board. No tickets required. People all over the world, join hands. Oh, my love train. Oh, all over the world, join hands. Start a love train. Get on board, get on board, get on board. Join hands. Start a love train. Get on board.
I want you to stand and I want you to join. I want you to repeat after me, if you're willing. If you're not, just sit. But, all right? This is what we're saying. We got the affirmative thing going on here. Let's do it. Something magnificent is happening through me right now.
Something magnificent is happening through me right now.
It is happening through my mind,
It's happening through my mind,
through my body, through my affairs. I think it. I believe it. I accept it. I rejoice in it. I name it good and very good. Thank you, God. And so it is. Have a blessed week. Let's sing the peace song. There we go.